sound system here.
Okay, great.
All right, I'm going live now, so give it about 10 seconds or so. Okay, you're good.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Martello, and I'm the new Chief Operating Officer here at Woodford Schools. Before we get started, if you are online, if you go ahead and mute your account, your Google Meet login, and that way we don't get any feedback for this part of the presentation. Thank you to all that have volunteered this winter and spring to provide representation for your different schools, parent groups, community leaders, county planning and zoning, and our school board. As you may know, this is the first meeting for this cycle of the planning committee, or the local planning committee.
Hold on, let me get that off. Where'd the remote go? Seriously. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We are lucky to have some assistance tonight from Tim Eaton with the Kentucky School Boards Association. Thank you, Mr. Eaton, for helping us tonight. Mr. Eaton will be guiding us through this process this spring and winter. Mr. Eaton is a retired superintendent with a very diverse background. And with that said, I will go ahead and turn the meeting over to Mr. Eaton to get started. Yes.
You'll excuse me, I am going to remove my mask. Got to do quite a bit of talking tonight, but again, my name is Tim Eaton. Actually, this part of my work is with the Kentucky School Plant Managers Association. Your district is very familiar with that organization. They work with facilities and maintenance issues, but I do work for KSBA and do other types of work out in the field. But tonight, we are required to do 2 orientations with this process. And I apologize, but there's no way to make orientation 1 very much fun, but we'll do the best we can to scoot through it. As facilitator, I will talk about the slides, whereas if I was not here, you would hear an audio from Frankfurt that was read directly to you from the KAR. So hopefully I won't hardly be that boring. But I have had a background in education. I retired 10 years ago with 32 years of education and worked my last 10 years as superintendent down in Pulaski County. We were a district with about 8,500 students and enjoyed my work, but passed the torch on, and I've been doing some part-time work ever since. Again, it's good to be with you. I appreciate the opportunity to work with Woodford County Schools for the first time. So, with that, I think you either have a notebook or you probably have this on your screen for those who are virtual. And by the way, you're going to be signed in by Mr. Martello as being present. Department of Education is allowing us to initial for you, and the district employee will do that, not I. So those people here in person have signed in, but it is important that we sign in because the sign-in sheets are kept and sent later at the end of the process to KDE to prove part of the record that they want from this entire process. This is a step-by-step process. We'll have to exercise some patience because occasionally there'll be a long wait between meetings due to the architect's work and the facilities branch's review of their work and getting back to us with reports. So we'll keep you posted. Right now, we can't schedule the next meeting until we know some more from the building assessments done by the architect. Okay, we'll get started. the general overview. You have an agenda there of what we will talk about tonight, and I'll make this as painless as I can. We'll be looking at those items that are on there. I'm not going to read those to you. You all are educated people and smart people. So the agenda, as you see, those are the items we will be touching on tonight. You can move on now, Jeff. Go ahead. Okay, you can see that the mission for the department is that the branch of facilities does assist all 171 districts in the state with their planning efforts. And of course, the long range goal for that is to have a equity and adequacy for each student to reach proficiency in the state of Kentucky. However, I will tell you that all districts are unique and different, as yours would be too. So all 171 districts have different differences that they claim and that they do, but we all work together with the children under the KDE umbrella. The legal basis, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this at all because it goes back to the Reform Act in 1990. And that's when things became to change with that 900-page document that was known as a very significant place in history for education in the state of Kentucky. So efficient schools were part of their goal in that, and that being with the maintenance and facility and upkeep of the schools. You can see there that what they highlight in the yellow is the legal basis that we're looking at. It does say in number 4, common schools shall be substantially uniform throughout the state. There are a lot of differences throughout the state in facilities based on the community's taxation as far as the property tax rates, as far as their industry and that type of thing. Some districts are very poor, and there is a mechanism in place to help them financially we'll talk about toward the end. Okay, General Assembly does monitor the facilities efforts in the state of Kentucky. All districts have to do a 4-year facility plan unless they get a waiver, and sometimes they will issue a waiver if it's a small district and not a lot is changing as far as demographics and things within the facilities themselves. Your district would probably never be granted a waiver. You're large enough to, those needs are going to be here, and you're going to be able to work on them systematically as you go. But then it talks about the constitutional right of students to have a free and adequate education in Kentucky. And we are going to skip over this slide, Jeff, because we really don't need to talk about that far back and that one. We're going to come up to 2008. One more, there it is. Okay. There was a task force that was formed in 2008 that changed the LPC process a little bit. And it was, as it says, more greatly defined. And it was, they add in an orientation part 2, which will come the next time. That orientation will be much more interesting to you because that's going to have information about Woodford County, demographics, about all the information toward your district that is more interesting to the committee. And they added they changed the years that roofs and HVAC, they changed that to 15 years. It used to be 30 years. And they added the maintenance director to the LPC, and planning outcomes requirements more precisely defined. So it's gotten more defined down through the years. Okay, you're just seeing some things there about facility plan outcomes, thermal comfort, adequacy, technology, and you know how that changes so quickly. And the decisions made have to reflect your financial picture, what you can afford. Long-term versus short-term if you piecemeal something together in facilities, lots of times you're gonna turn right around and spend money to, quicker than need be. So we try to focus on, smarter assessments of buildings and how to fix those and the affordability of that. Sometimes there has to be Band-Aids, but that's not the best way. And then it talks about comparing your school to others in the region. And as I said, they're all unique and different. How does it affect student outcome? Well, we've already seen that one, Jeff. Okay, school facilities best practice. 90% of facilities shall be in good new condition. That's certainly not true all over the state of Kentucky. There's very poor districts out there that are in very, very old buildings. I see some buildings that date back into the 40s and even 40s and early 50s. And a lot of buildings were built in the 60s, and a lot of those still exist across the state and have been renovated over and over. Now all buildings, back up one please, all buildings shall meet technology goals. That used to have to be the case, and then notice portable classrooms are removed as part of the plan. Now I did Fayette County's plan 3 or 4 years ago, and they had many portable classrooms. That's because their student population growth, they couldn't keep up with the buildings. They were gaining 700 students a year, and therefore they had to have the portables. But the portables are very expensive. They have to be handicap accessible. They have to have all the amenities that's required in a regular classroom. So they're very expensive, but sometimes that's the only way districts of their size can keep up with student growth. Talks then about maintenance staff, about 1 per building, and usually that's about 3 to 7% of the general fund budget cost. Okay. Then it talks about custodial services, and I don't know that you have a formula here, you may, but in Pulaski County, we used to try to follow this 1 for 20,000 square feet. And that has a lot to do with the types of buildings you have too. You might have to be a little different, but it is important to, and I think you all probably do have a supply area where the custodians, you have a central store, Mr. Hawkins?
Yes, we do, and then we disperse it out.
Yes,
So,
that's a wise way to do it, because you can keep a good queue on your resources and make sure you cut down on the waste. And I remember when I changed that in Pulaski County, the janitors were very upset. They had a lot of stuff hoarded up in the boiler rooms that they thought they'd need. And we had to work through those things, but it's much better to have a district-wide distribution center. And then district energy-wide energy management shall be in place. I don't know that shall is a strong word. I don't know that it's in place everywhere, but it is well known that you can save 35% on your energy cost if you do manage your systems with updated technology on controls, HVAC, and those types of things, and have some shutdowns when you're not in the building, and setbacks where you can save energy. Okay. And if anyone has a question, it doesn't bother me anytime you need to ask a question if you wish. They're just defining equity here. And this slide is very outdated. It shows you a little bit about the RS Means Price Guide. Is what the Department of Education facilities used for several years. They do not use that anymore. Actually, this went away in 2015, but you can see there the cost of square footage back in 13, and I believe it says 14. And look at the high school slide, and you can see $237 is the cost for replacement cost. Usually the high school is the most expensive building to build in the district because they're larger and have more square footage usually. That cost right now, the architects tell me, is in the $240 range. So that's how much it's changed. And probably may, and when you do plan a building, you can plan on this, but you know, you might get your bids in much better, or they could be higher. But I know there's an elementary school being built in Menifee County right now, and they got in it for $170 a square foot, which is cheap in this market today. Go ahead. And then they talk about adequacy. And the district, the facilities branch, uses what they call the model school program for all schools in Kentucky. If you're going to renovate or you're going to build, you're going to go to the model school program. And here they just have a slide that shows what 300, 400, 500, and 600 pupil elementary schools would be required to have if they were building a brand new building. And it shows the square footage, it shows the number of classrooms and all. The state of Kentucky will not approve a building under 300 pupils. That's a KRS also. So if some of the districts in eastern Kentucky are losing students, and I know of some schools over there that may have 100 in a building. It's costing the district a tremendous lot of money to run those schools with 100 kids because the money follows the students. But they're holding on to those. There's community values there, and they've been there for years, and they're holding on to those. But eventually, they're not going to be able to afford to keep those open because of the cost. And it's just talking about their model schools program that they use as a benchmark for all schools. And its goal is to have a system of common schools throughout the Commonwealth. It would take many years to ever do that, but that's what they're working toward. The next slides will have, this is a schematic of the 300 pupil elementary school. I'm just going to show you 3 slides about how those were the building blocks that would be involved. Now this is a 300 school scheme A. This school does not have, it's an efficient layout as it says, but it's lacking exterior windows, and I know a lot of teachers love windows, and sometimes that plan might get scratched if someone was building it because of the lack of exterior windows, but it is a cheaper and efficient way to build. Okay. Then you're seeing a scheme B, common layout. It separates the primary and intermediate students, and that's a good thing too. So you can see how the classrooms are separated on different quarters of the building, and all the gymnasium, library, media center, rather, and all is located in the middle where they can be used. Okay. And then you have another that separates the commons. The last school that we built in Pulaski County, we used this model, and the commons areas have bathrooms, and the students do not get out in the main hallways hardly ever. They even go out the door to the recess out their back doors of those commons areas. Those 6 areas that are yellow there with the E, those would be the commons areas, and they have a pretty large area separating the classrooms where you can pull kids out and do individual instruction in the corridor. And again, they're not circulating all over the building when they go to lunch, recess, whatever. Popular model in the state of Kentucky. Okay, now we're talking a little bit about your format for your district facility plan right now. And you have a copy of your current facility plan, I believe, in your binder. And kind of makes more sense sometimes to look at that if you have that. But you have a plan of organization for your district. That's whether you're K through 6 or whether you're K through 5 or 7, 8, 9, 9 through 12 high school. But all districts have some plan of organization, and that's at the top of the page. And then it talks about the variance. Let's see. That's basically what it's all talking about on this slide is the plan organization. I'm sorry. And then functional, permanent, or transitional. A permanent center is a center that's deemed to be there. Sometimes when a facility is being talked about, maybe being taken down in the 4-year plan of the cycle, it would be deemed transitional because that is what the state wants on there. If you've got a building that you may be going to close or you're going to consolidate or something like that. But I believe in looking at your plan, I believe you all have permanent centers. If I'm not mistaken, I believe all of them are permanent at this time. Yes. Okay. Enrollment capacity is important too. That was the last one on there. Now you can see out to the right on there, your current plan shows your enrollment capacity, and you keep your enrollment stays up in most of your schools, pretty close to capacity, and that is financially equitable for the district. It's really good when you see a capacity that is way below, an enrollment way below capacity. Then you know there's a lot of space in that building that they could incur growth if they could have it. Some areas can't have growth, but when you see the enrollment close to capacity, it's a good thing, monetary wise for your district. Okay, in the format of the plan, you will see capital construction priorities. They fall under number 1 and number 2. There's 5 parts to the draft plan when it's finished. And you have that. And these are the most critical needs of the district. Your current plan was Woodford County High School. That's number 1. And whether that stays a priority will be determined by the LPC and the board. It stays number 1 priority or whatever. Then major renovation, you have some of those listed. Those all fall. The only difference in number 1s and number 2s is number 1s are in the first biennium of the 4-year plan. They're being planned and worked on during that process. Is what you're hoping for when you put them on these plans like that. So number 1s are in the first 2 years of the plan. They're being worked on, planned, and laid out. And you did not have any number 2s on this plan for the second half of the biennium. You may have this time, I don't know. But, and again, your architect will be a key person that will be working with us to go through, show us what's been completed on that plan. That will be marked off of the new plan, things that have been completed by the district in the last 4 years. So you probably have some things on there be coming off, but there'll be some more needs that may be identified that will be brought forth by the architect for consideration. Let's see. Back up one, Jeff, I'm sorry. This is a key part. Priorities 1 through 4 are eligible for restricted funding. In the world of school funding, it's a complicated how many pots of money that we have to draw from. And restricted funds are, just as they say, they're restricted for construction, new construction, and renovation. And your funding usually falls into a 20-year bond issue if you do a big project. The interest rates the bonds are sold really cheap in most cases, sometimes in the 2 to 3% for a 20-year bond issue. And it's like paying for a house. If you have a 20-year loan, you'll have a 20-year bond issue with school facilities, construction, renovation. So that's normally not too many districts anymore have enough general fund money to pay for a lot out of general funds. Now we're talking about number 2s here, 1s and 2s. They're exactly the same. They have the same components within them, but remember the number 1s are planned within the first 2 years of the 4-year plan, the first biennium. So those are exactly the same as ones and twos. Okay. During this process, you all did opt to have a facilitator, which is me, and I appreciate that. I think I can probably teach Mr. Martello how to do this the next time. And he might not like that, but I can't tell with his mask on. And you have an architect that that will be coming on the scene, and I don't know, is she listening in tonight?
Yes, she should be.
Okay, she had requested she might want to listen in. That's Miss Lemire from Ross Tarrant Architects. So I have talked to her on the phone, and she will be working to get the building assessment information to us as a committee. That would happen around the third meeting that we will have in weeks to come. So the architect is a key person. They'll bring the information to us. They will give us all of the needs that exist out in the district at each and every building site. And we will come in and collectively hear that information, and it will be narrowed down to a small report such as this. It could be 3 pages the next time, but this is a 2-page report. But all of that information will be rolled into this draft plan that the committee will work together to put together. And she will be, again, the key person. She'll be presenting your district officials with their knowledge, their information, what other kinds of information we may need to glean from the district. We'll decide and ask for that. And there is an acronym down there. Well, just leave it right there. Just go right on, sir. Jeff, go right on. Believe. Okay, go to the next slide, the very next one. Okay, there's an acronym there, Kfix. That is a new assessment piece that's been around. There used to be a building assessment that was much less complicated, believe me, but Kfix came into place about 3 years ago, and it's through a company called Amoresco, and it's very detailed information. You can see it's the Kentucky Facility Inventory Classification System. This has been problematic for probably a year and a half. They're about to get it smoothed out now, and this is what your buildings have been assessed by this Kfix assessment tool. Again, there's a lot of information that there wasn't before, but the architect will bring this information. She will hone this down and bring it to us in a report and let us know at each building site what's needed. And these are called unmet needs. When you get the total unmet need of your district, as you can see on your old plan, it could be $46 million of unmet need. In other words, they put a price tag on everything that they bring to us that is in need within the district. KDE reviews that, and they may make some adjustments, but that's how the draft plan works. It'll be put together here. We go to them for review, and they may send it back with comments and adjustments be made, and the committee understand those adjustments, and eventually we'll vote on the draft plan. But the higher your unmet need is in dollars, a little bit, you get a little more money because all the unmet need in Kentucky goes together. Then you are given some monies. We'll talk about funding briefly in a little bit, but there's a SFCC commission that is legislative money that they send down. Now, I actually am on that board. We did have 150 million to disperse. Now we're down to 53 million, but it's still monies that you can use to pay for bond issues and indebtedness in all districts. Get their piece of the pie based on their unmet need, that total at the end. And last time I think you all were at 46 million. I think it's looks like that. No, I'm sorry, 53 million. So that's pretty common for a district your size. Okay. We will we'll have to have more than 3 meetings with the district your size, but that's the maximum that we can hold. We'll try to keep it as few as we can, but it's going to take a little more time here. But they have to be advertised. This meeting was advertised 7 days before we were able to have it. It had to be advertised one time. I worked with Jeff to get that done, and we will have to have 3 public forums, they call it, where we invite the public in. Of course, it is an open meeting to the public. Any meeting is, but we'll have 3 public forums that would invite the public to ask any questions about what we're doing. And throughout the process, we would have to have 3 of those. And one of them has to come after the plan has been developed. And this is very important. A quorum must be present. You have a 20-person committee. Unfortunately, by the KAR, the superintendent is a member of the committee, but he's not a voting member. So we actually have 19 folks that can vote. So we need to have 10 people present in order to have a quorum and to have a meeting. So that's very important, and we'll be planning dates and making sure people can come before we would waste our time and come in and not have a quorum. Okay. As I earlier said, we developed a draft plan here with lots of help from the architect. We approved the plan, hopefully, and that's in. Pardon?
Would you mind mentioning that last bullet there, that the forums can be held like right before?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Meeting,
I should.
You don't have to.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. He asked me to mention that the public forums are held right before the LPC meeting. In other words, we would advertise that there will be a public forum at Woodford County High School at 5:30 on such and such a date for the LPC work, and they would come in at 5:30 if they come, or virtually join us. At the end of that, we go right into the meeting. So that is important, and I'm sorry I didn't mention it, Mr. Hawkins, but everybody might have thought that we had to have a forum and meeting forum, all that. Those work together. So it'll be one night out for a forum and meeting. Thank you, Scott. Okay. When we get a draft developed, the best practice is to send it on to the department and let them look at it. Because sometimes they'll have comments that the architect needs to go back and change something that was on that draft, whether it's figures, whether it's lots of times the dollars don't match what the architects put on, what KDE values the particular project at. So it's best to have them to review it, send it back to us with their comments, then we digest that, and then if it's acceptable, we vote on it. Acceptable. If we're not ready to vote on it, then we have the architect go back and say, hey, this, and this, we need this, and this, we need to change this, and it's a back and forth work. But most of the time, when KDE sends it back, we usually are ready to vote on it in most cases. And that's what it's talking about there. It sends it back. Then it would go to the Board of Education. After KDE reviews it, the committee approves it, votes on it, and the majority, it just takes a simple majority vote. Then it goes to the board to consider. And the board can send it back if there's something on it that they don't agree with. But we have a board member representative on the committee. So hopefully that person will have knowledge of what's going on. There'll be communication there as to where we won't have that problem. But then if the board approves it, then we would advertise and do a public hearing. I would be the hearing officer. You're not required to be there. You can be there if you want, but that would be where the community can come in and ask about the plan itself, or not, no, I'm sorry, come in and review the plan, but they have their questions during the forums. It's just a review of what the work's been done, and they can make comments but it's not a question and answer session. It is a time for them to view the plan. They don't have to come to the forum or to the hearing to do that. They pick up the plan and look at it. We'll have plans available at your board office, but we're required to have that public hearing. And after that, we're pretty well on our way to getting that to KDE for their review and approval at the school board meeting. And they meet every other month at the department, Kentucky Board of Education. Okay. Talking about the hearing, that one has to be advertised 14 days prior. Everything else, that when you have a forum, they're advertised 7 days. But the hearing process is a 2-week notice before the meeting. Then I would write up a hearing report and present it to the board. That's their last piece that they have to look at. If they approve it, hearing report, then I gather up 30 or 40 documents and they all go to Frankfurt. The documentation would consist of minutes of these meetings. It would consist of the sign-in sheets, as I mentioned before. It would consist of the draft plan itself, the hearing report, and a few other documents, but it's usually 20 to 30 pages that they want in the end. Talks about if the KDE, if the Kentucky Board did reject the plan. I've done 30 some of these plans. I've never seen them reject one because when KDE reviews it and we get their blessing, then we pretty well know it's going to be passed by the board. This is the key part about the timeline. Everything has to be into the facilities branch 45 days prior to the state board meeting. So let's say our plan, doesn't say on our plan when it's due. Let's say our plan's due of June of 2021. Then everything would have to be there by mid-April for them to process. Didn't used to be that way, but it is now. Okay. Of course, then you've got a plan for the next 4 years if it's approved. And unless you've got to amend or something comes up in the district, and hopefully we'll have a plan that we won't have to have amendments and change. Okay. This is again the number ones. You can see what consists in number ones. I think everyone has a copy. I don't want to read that to you, but you can see down they highlight at the bottom that it's talking about current life safety requirements. That's something that's been added in the last few years. That's why they have it highlighted. Sometimes that's a secure vestibule in an older school that maybe don't have that. It's a secure vestibule where they construct another wall as the students come in. There's more monitoring there. There's more safety guidelines that are followed by staff, such as wanting them or whatever. So it depends on where you live and what you need on that. But that is now in the building code. That's a major piece. And if you have schools that don't have that, it will show up on your plan because they require it to. And then, of course, the handicap accessibility requirements. Those have been around for ages, but it's still a big deal on the plan. They look and make sure that all of your facilities, and it depends. You're grandfathered in sometimes if you've got an older building, and you just have to not hold a meeting there with the public where there's issues. Now, student accessibility, that's a different picture. That has to be dealt with. Okay. Your threes, remember I said there were 5 parts to a plan, the format of the plan. Your threes are construction of non-educational. Let's see if you had any threes. You actually did have no, that's a 1 3. You did not have any 2s or 3s. So That's like expanding a kitchen, building a new cafeteria on an older version of a building that needed more cafeteria space, gymnasiums, auditoriums, that type of thing. Not a lot of folks building auditoriums anymore. They're very expensive and just hard to come up with that kind of money. Management support areas like construction, acquisition, renovation, central office, bus garage, and central stores. And you did have something about that on yours. You had some plans maybe to use this building a different way if you built a new high school and use this for some of those needs. And then discretionary projects, construction project at the end, lots of times that would be athletic complexes, things like that. And the part of that is tough is that you cannot use restricted monies for those projects unless you can roll them into a renovation. And at a school that you're doing major renovation, you can roll whatever that need is into that at that school. But if you just come up on a discretionary project and say that, let's see, yours here, you have a bus loop, cover the bus loop here. You have athletic bathroom concession building at the middle school. Those can be rolled in, as I said, in a bigger project, but if you're just doing that by itself, the district's gonna have to find ways to pay for that without using restricted monies. Unless KDE approves it. You can ask, but most of the time that doesn't happen. So you can see down at the three boxes at the bottom what the fives are, discretionary. Okay, Jeff. I'm not going to talk a lot about funding because at the next meeting we will bring your bond agent here, and he or she, whomever comes, will talk about the amount of money that you have, that they keep up with that with your district through your finance office, and they will come and talk to you about what you have available to, and maybe that will determine probably what you can do in the next 4 years, your bonding capacity. And I've not looked at any of that, but we will have the agent come and give us a very exact benchmark there to go by. And again, restricted funds, that's the funds that you use. I once had a mama came to me when I was superintendent, and she wanted me to spend $50,000 on band uniforms. And I really didn't have that in the general fund to spare, because I had two high schools, and if you give one 50,000, you're gonna have to give the other 50,000. So I explained to her the restricted funds, because she said, well, you're building a brand new school up there. Why can't you buy our band uniforms, different monies for different uses? And the general public doesn't always understand that. But you do get some, through the SEEK funding program, you do get some monies. There's $100 of capital outlay money that 80% of it can be used toward bond issues, bond payments, that type of thing. That's calculated $100 times each child that's enrolled in your school district. That's what you get from the SEEK each year. And it's talking just again about that. It's talking about your property assessments, the monies that you get from that. You get 5 cents of every $100 assessed value of the properties in Woodford County of taxes that are paid. Talks about the SFC again down there, and it does mention the facility support program in Kentucky. That's the one that I'm talking about, that there's some equalization there for poorer districts. Your bonding agent will tell you more specifics about that when they come. And then the SFCC money that I mentioned before is the money that the legislature, every 2 years, they'll put some money into that program to use out in the urgent needs part of it. There's grants available if you have the school in a flood zone and you get flooded, and you can apply for some of those grants to help with those cleanups and that type of thing. Unfortunately, there are some schools that have been built in flood zones in the state of Kentucky. Not anymore, but for few years back there, that wasn't really anything that was looked at very closely. Okay. And that's just what I said about SEEK. Your ADA times $100 is what you get for your capital outlay monies. That can be, as I said, 80% of it can be used. Okay. And then again, it's talking about the property assessment funding. They call them nickels because it's always 5 cents of the assessed $100 value. And okay. This is no longer, I had a growth nickel passed in Pulaski County when I was superintendent because we grew 300 kids, which was a percentage of our total enrollment that matched at least 1.5%. And we did pass a growth nickel years ago, but they won't fund them anymore. They're all through funding those. So if your district's growing and growing and growing, the growth nickel's not out there to be considered. But we did get one back in the early 2000s in Pulaski County, which added 5 cents to everybody's assessed property value, but we didn't have any opposition. Okay, and this is the board that I sit on, and I've been explained that every 2 years there's a pot of money goes out from the legislature, and it has been dwindling, so we're hoping that it might start back the other way, but I'm not real optimistic that it will in this economy. Okay. And that was the urgent needs grant that I mentioned, and I can give you an example in Menifee County, which I did their last 3 plans. I think they had an elementary school that flooded. They applied for some of that and got some money they actually got some money to build a new school that helped them quite a bit in the new school construction. That their elementary school flooded about once a year, and it was a terrible mess and a bad situation. Anytime you have water penetrate a building, it's not good. It's, whether it's coming through the roof or whether it's standing on the floor, it's not good. And that's all in one, presentation one. I would invite anyone, if you have a question. We're going to do 2 more things tonight. We're going to elect the chairperson for this committee that will run the meetings from here on. I will be here working with them, but we are going to do that next. But before we get to that, if anyone out there has a question, anyone here has a question, comment, we're open to listening. And okay, if there are none, that means
this is Alice. I had a question real quick.
Sure.
If you could, I'm familiar with most of the people that are involved in the meeting tonight, but if you could, I would just like to know each person, what their involvement is, like what role they play or what they do to be involved in the meeting.
Good question. Good question. I think I will have Jeff come. I do have a list, but he knows you better than I do probably. So we'll do that rundown for you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. We've got online tonight. These are for the attendees. Brad Shelby is a parent, is present. Virtual. Melissa Tomlin, parent, virtual.
If you could slow down just a bit,
Sure.
I'm trying to write it down. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely.
So
Sure.
Shelby is a parent.
Sure. From the beginning, it's Brad Shelby, parent, attending virtual.
Okay.
Melissa Tomlin, parent, attending virtual.
Okay.
Catherine Gold, parent, attending virtual. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce anybody's name. Joanne Blackburn is a parent. She is not present tonight.
Okay.
Ms. Kendra Wadsworth, teacher, attending virtual. Megan Carroll, teacher, attending virtual.
Okay.
Emily Milby, teacher, attending virtual.
Okay.
Jessica Knight, teacher, physically here, present.
Okay.
Scott Hunley, administrator, attending virtually.
Okay.
Liz Kirk, administrator, attending virtually.
Okay.
Morgan Howe, administrator, physically present.
Okay.
Ryan Wilson, administrator, attending virtual.
Okay.
Glenn Burnett, district facilities, physically present.
Okay.
Jeff Martello, central office admin, present.
Okay.
Patty Wilson, planning and zoning, attending virtual.
Okay. Perfect.
Emily Downey, community leader, attending virtual.
Okay.
Chad Wells, community leader, attending virtual.
Okay.
Nancy Blackford, community leader, not present.
Okay.
Allison Richardson, board member, attending virtual.
Okay.
Scott Hawkins, non-voting member, attending in person.
Thank you so much.
Sure. And we've got another number here, the phone number that ends in 94. Is that, could you speak up and unmute and introduce yourself, please? Phone number ending in 94. We had you as virtual. Somebody did.
Yeah, we're having some issues.
Oh, okay. We're having some issues if anyone is still on. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on. If I don't hear anybody that has a phone number ending in 94. Okay, I'll pass the mic over to Mr. Eaton again.
Okay, I think you're hearing, you're probably not seeing, and that's okay. We're going to, at this time, take a nomination or a self-nomination from anyone virtual or anyone in person here to serve as our chairperson. Part of my job is to line up the meetings, get the agendas rolled out, those types of things. So there's no extra work. The only thing you would do if you were chairman, you would run the meeting. And that's, in this process, pretty simplistic, just basic Robert's Rules of Order. Lots of you have worked with site-based council meetings. You've worked with in church business meetings, lots of things like that. So at this time, and this is usually when it gets really quiet in the meeting, At this time, if anyone would nominate or self-nominate, volunteer that you might want to be the chairman of the Working County LPC, let's hear from you.
I'll nominate Mr. Martello.
Okay, we have a nomination from the floor here for Mr. Martello. Any other nominations? If not, if you are okay with that, would you all just say yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, anyone, well, we don't want to hurt Jeff's pride, but anyone that votes no, you can do that likewise. So I think he's unanimous. So just in case that Mr. Martello could not be with us, and for some reason or other, we always try to have a backup vice chair, and I would entertain any self-nominations or nomination of someone else this time.
I nominate Scott Hunley for vice chair.
Okay. Any other nominations? Are you going to do that? Okay. I think we only have the one. Did you say Mr. Hunley? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can we get a name that presented the nomination for the minutes?
They're doing minutes, so they wanted the name presenting the nomination. I'm sorry.
Sure. This is Brad Shelby, recommending Scott Hunley for vice chair.
Thank you, Brad. I hear no other nominations. So if everyone would just affirm that by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Any no's? Of course not. No one else wants to do this. So we appreciate your participation in that. And on the agenda now, it talks about the next meeting date, and unfortunately, we cannot share that with you tonight because that's going to hinge on the architect getting all the building information in, getting it to the Department of Education, and I don't know exactly where we're at on that piece. But Sarah, are you listening? I guess not. The architect. So we will be getting information out through the your chairman here and letting you know when. It will not be in the next couple or 3 weeks. It will be a little longer because right now is one of the glitches between now and orientation 2 that we always have at all districts. So you're not going to be any different. KDE does not move really fast with this work. So we will keep you apprised of that when our next meeting will be.
Jim?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was listening. I just didn't get to my mute button okay. But we do not have an update on when KDE will finish their review and we'll have the assessments done.
Thank you, Sarah. So our next meeting topic will be orientation 2, which would be that information that they're gleaning from your buildings, putting some data together as far as orientation 2. And then we would also have your fiscal agent here to talk about where you stand financially as to what you would be able to do in the next 4 years with your bond issues. So, any other questions from anyone out there? I want to say I really appreciate the technology folks here for the way they have set this up. It's been quite effective, and I have not seen that a couple places I've been. So I give accolades to the technology folks here at the district. And anything from anyone else? If not, I would take just a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you. We don't vote on adjournment. Congratulations, Mr. Martello.
Yes.